that if it is not for the government of India, we don't exist. They should look for communist leaders who have died, like Mao Zedong, Deng Xiaoping, Jiang Zemin, look for their reincarnation. Xi Jinping won't be there to resolve these problems. Even Panchen Lama's influence in Tibet is very minimal. His Holiness' response is that I will be born in a free world if Tibet is not free by that time.
This is an India Today exclusive. I'm being joined by Sikyong Penpa Tsering. He is the head of the CTA, which is the Tibetan Government in Exile. A very important announcement was made with regards to the reincarnation of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. To discuss this and more on how China has reacted and what the process is going to be, thank you so much for joining us, Sikyong Tsering, on the India Today network.
Thank you for having me.
Let's begin with the fact that the news is huge because there was a lot of speculation over whether if there is going to be a successor to the Dalai Lama or not. Now that speculation has been put to rest. But in terms of the details, is it only about the trust, His Holiness's office, that is going to select the next successor? Or is it also about the area that he will indeed be born outside of China or Chinese-controlled territories?
I think this word succession and reincarnation is being used alternatively or by choice by media around the world. I would say in the case of His Holiness, there have been, of course, as we said, a lot of speculations. His Holiness has even said that this could be the last Dalai Lama. When he is asked whether the next Dalai Lama could be a woman, His Holiness says, why not? Because mothers are naturally compassionate. And then people also ask about emanation, which is appointing somebody before your demise. So emanation is more akin to succession. And reincarnation is looking more for a new soul boy or girl after the demise of the Lama. So I think this basic difference important to know. And the Chinese government, of course, they have been working on this for the last more than 2 decades, and they have even passed a law called Order Number 5 way back in 2007, which talks about the Chinese government, the power to recognize the reincarnated lamas, or what they call as living Buddhas. And I think they have made their own plans, and they keep saying that, one, they will look for His Holiness reincarnation within Tibet or within China and not outside. So that is why this is one reason. And another reason is whenever there are talks about His Holiness wishing to visit China or Tibet, or China inviting His Holiness to come to Tibet or China, they always put this precondition that His Holiness should stay back for good, for which His Holiness has always said that if I get the opportunity to visit, I will visit, but I'll not live there because there's no freedom there. And when Chinese government says that, then His Holiness' response is that I will be born in a free world if Tibet is not free by that time. Right? And the second thing the Chinese government talks about is using the golden urn, which was introduced in 1793 by the Qing dynasty, when they had little influence over Tibet, and following that, they had their own 100 years of humiliation, as they say. So when they cannot look after Tibet themselves, then there's no question about ruling Tibet. So even then, the Qings were Buddhists in a way, because the Tibetan masters were Buddhist preceptors to the Chinese emperor. Right now, the Chinese government is a communist government that does not believe in any religion, and there have been 8 Dalai Lamas. When Chinese government says that, oh, Dalai Lama, His Holiness Dalai Lama is breaking traditions, they mean to say that we are not planning to use the golden urn, because golden urn was introduced mainly to use it as a political tool over the Tibetans, and the communist government wants to do the same thing. So there have been 8 Dalai Lamas before the golden urn. So what about those Dalai Lamas? Are they not Dalai Lamas just because the golden urn was not used? Even after the golden
Interesting point.
Even after the golden urn was introduced, it was rarely used, only on those occasions where the lamas have already been selected through traditional means. So that was you. And the third thing Chinese government says is that has to be recognized by the Chinese government. So a government that does not believe in any religion, forget about Buddhism, which talks about believing in the concept of life after death. That is why His Holiness always has a very humorous way of responding to this by saying, if the Chinese government is really serious, they should study Buddhism and understand the concept of life after death. And if they're still very serious, they should look for communist leaders who have died, like Mao Zedong, Deng Xiaoping, Jiang Zemin, look for their reincarnation. Then maybe the
Right.
in a very quizzical way.
But Sikyong Tsering, there is a problem here. We wish a very long life to the Dalai Lama, but there will be a moment, a time when you will have to then look for a reincarnate. And China is going to place one of its own as well.
Yes.
Is that going to create a massive problem in how the Dalai Lama's, this institution is revered? And we've seen that in the past, dilution of other spiritual heads and lineages, like the Pancham Lama. Do you see the Dalai Lama also going to the same trajectory and fall in the same track?
In the case of Panchen Lama, both the boys were from inside Tibet. Both the candidates. There were three candidates, and two of them, one selected by the Chinese government and one selected by His Holiness through traditional means. Yes, I keep telling the Chinese as to have they not learned enough lesson from the Panchen Lama saga. As we mentioned, there was one recognized by His Holiness, and Chinese became angry because His Holiness announced this first, so they selected their own Panchen Lama. And I said in one of the conference earlier that I think Chinese government made a strategic mistake by not recognizing the same boy that His Holiness recognized. Now, in the case of future Dalai Lama, whenever the eventuality happens, then we are talking about the Tibetans selecting their Dalai Lama through traditional means in a free world. So I keep telling the Chinese, do you want a lifelong headache or not? Even if it happens during Xi Jinping's time, Xi Jinping won't be there to resolve these problems. This will be a lifelong problem. But then the question is, how much freedom will the Chinese Dalai Lama have? If you look at Panchen Lama, Chinese Panchen Lama now, he has not traveled beyond Thailand and Hong Kong. Where is the influence we are talking about? Even Panchen Lama's influence in Tibet is very minimal. Traditional Tibet, just like in India, when you seek a guru, when you go to your teacher, you make offerings. But in this case, right now in Tibet, whenever Panchen Lama, right now he's in Lhasa, whenever he comes to Lhasa, they pay money to the Tibetans to go and receive him, pay money to the Tibetans to go and listen to his teaching, make it mandatory for all beneficiaries of government subsidies to attend those programs, so which is being forced. So forceful supplication to any Lama will not work. It will have the other effects on people. So this thing will happen. It looks more like it's given. So we are preparing ourselves in the free world, working with the Tibetans, who are the first group of community that will be directly impacted, and then looking at the larger Tibetan Buddhist world, then looking at the larger Buddhist world, and then internationally in the free world where they practice democracy, just like we have this Resolve Tibet Act in the US Congress. We will be working with like-minded countries in the free world to seek policy decisions on religious freedom and reincarnation.
Tsering, what is interesting is that that the fact that it's going to the reincarnate is going to be outside of China and Chinese-controlled territories could very well mean anywhere in the free world. Might not be in India. Are we looking at a situation where the Dalai Lama's office could shift from Dharamshala?
As of now, we built all these institutions in Dharamsala from scratch. So to move this to another place would be huge. It's a humongous task because it will need a lot of resources as well. So uh, we don't know. It's up to His Holiness to decide where he will be born in the free world. But as His Holiness said yesterday also, just before reading the statement, it is ultimately the wish of people, and the reincarnation will also have to do with the relations between between His Holiness Dalai Lama and the family and the community where His Holiness will be born. So there has to be a connection of faith and supplication and all those. So uh, that is why Professor Sangdong Rinpoche, along with me at the Meet the Press yesterday, also said that it's a premature question because His Holiness keeps reassuring us that he will live for another 2 decades and more. So these signs and symbols and divinations are done just before the departing from this life. It does not happen 10 years, 20 years before that. But I think His Holiness did mention about formalizing this into a structure, into an institution. So right now, when His Holiness says that there will be a continuation of the Dalai Lama institution, also indicates that His Holiness will reincarnate. Um, and that, from the Tibetan perspective, is still a long way off. Of course, when I'm asked by the media, some media ask as if His Holiness is going to get younger. His Holiness has no miracle to perform. His Holiness always says, "I'm a simple Buddhist monk," and His Holiness ages, and then of course, affects all his activities also, including international travels, which has been reduced, teachings which have been reduced, and media interviews that have been reduced, and long conversations. So even now, His Holiness keeps himself very busy by meeting with more than 1,000 Tibetans in 1 week, 1,000 visitors in 1 week, about 4,000, 5,000 people in 1 week. So yes, we believe that is still far way off into the future. And when it's the right time, then His Holiness will uh, uh, come out with whatever statement that needs to come out at that time.
Right. Zooming out a little and talking about how the foreign policy aspect of it, India has never been in a position where it had to either accept or reject the idea of who is going to be the Dalai Lama, because we invited the sitting head, spiritual head, to India and hosted him for these many years. This is a very unique situation India will have to prepare herself with. Why I say the Sikyong Tsering is because when a reincarnate is chosen in India or wherever by the trust, and when China also chooses a reincarnate, then the problem will be: can India then recognize the one who has been chosen by the trust, or will it be neutral? How do you read the situation that India would be in?
I like to believe that India will always be on the right side of history, considering the very old historical, cultural, linguistic, and religious ties between India and Tibet. India is the only country that has been, most generous with their humanitarian support for the Tibetans. And I've always said that if it is not for the government of India, we don't exist. And also on the border issues, I keep saying India has not changed the name from Indo-Tibetan Border Police and Indo-Tibetan Border Force to Indochina. That also underlies Indian government's position on Tibet. I know there are so many things on the table between India and China right now. So it may be because we have always been realistic. We have always said that till there is a resolution with the Chinese, we'll have to reach out to the international community. But when we do reach out, then we can't expect that country, whether it's India or US or any other country, to leave aside their national interests for the interests of Tibet. So we'll have to align our interests with that nation's interests so that we get more support. And we all know we have a very transparent relationship with the government of India. I'm in no position to advise the government of India because you have a lot of smart people at the helm of affairs. And we work closely, and I'm always of the belief that India will never be on the wrong side of history.
All right, and just a couple of more questions before I let you go. We were looking through the entire support to Tibet, or the cause for Tibet or the Dalai Lama, from Nehru to Modi. Do you think India could have been a little more firm with China? Over the years, we've seen whether if celebrations India should be participating in or not. The Thank You India celebrations that India decided not to participate but ended up participating. Do you think these decisions that are dependent on India's ties with China should not be the case when it comes to the Dalai Lama, and that there should be a firm position on the Dalai Lama, irrespective of whether ties with China are good or bad?
I think it depends on the nature of celebrations that we organize, whether it's sensitive to the government of India or not. So there have been one incident which you are mentioning, but right now we have most probably two union ministers coming, and Chief Minister of Arunachal Pradesh, Home Minister of Karnataka, Ladakh Hill Council will have the Himachal Chief Minister as chief guest for 10th December. So all these are indications of, because you know how it works in India. Without government's approval, it's very difficult for union ministers to represent. So that shows India's intention on the celebration of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Indian government has always said that they have treated His Holiness as a revered guest here in India. And His Holiness also says, I am like a son of India. Whatever message that His Holiness is spreading to the world is based on the wisdom of ancient India. So I think considering all these close relationships, India will be very cautious. We all know that when Prime Minister Modi ji came into office, he tried his best to build relations with China, even visiting China 2 times, inviting President Xi to India, to Gujarat and Mamallapuram and all that. But despite all those efforts, then Galwan happened, Ladakh happened, all the boundary issues are still unresolved. So you have this dam building on Brahmaputra. So many incidents which drags down. Sometimes it looks like India-China relations taking 1 step forward and 2 steps backwards. So I want to believe that India will be very, very cautious in its approach to China, even now. Once bitten, twice shy. So I like to believe that India will be very strategic in its approach.
Right. Finally, I just wanted to, again, a historical perspective. There is so much between India and Tibet in terms of cultural ties. In fact, India never had a border with China, if not for Tibet. It was always India-Tibet border. Do you think that India could have avoided recognizing Tibet as an autonomous region, an integral part of China, that India lost that leverage so many years ago during the Vajpayee administration?
I think the global situation is moving very fast. It's very dynamic, very fluid. There is now less respect to international law, rewriting of global order, so many things happening. We have to keep watch over all the developments and then see how the global developments impact Tibet, and also developments of relations between China and India on economic, political, security, many fields. So we are watching, and we are studying the situation and see what are the challenges and opportunities for us, including what could be scenarios for China in future, and look into all those. So those would be things that we need to study, and we have always considered India as our ally. Whether they want to be more forceful, more vocal, more visible, or not, it's something for the Indian leadership to decide. And we are working with the Western world, in the free world. I think we have been able to move a little ahead in our agenda. And when the right time comes, I think India will also be a part of that decision.
July 6th is an important day. Since, the Dalai Lama is turning 90. What are the plans for celebrations? Are there foreign dignitaries, diplomats who are also going to attend the celebrations?
This time, I apologize to all our friends around the world, followers of His Holiness, friends of His Holiness. that we could not send invitation for everybody because we have a very small place in front of His Holiness residence, and this is monsoon season, so we cannot organize in a more bigger open space which can accommodate more people. So based on that size, we have union ministers and chief ministers, as I mentioned, from Ladakh and others coming. We have other chief ministers coming in the days since we are celebrating this through the year. We have more programs. Then we also have represented some 8, 10 members of parliament who decided to come on their own to wish His Holiness. We have representatives from some governments, including the United States State Department, attending this program. So it's not just this occasion, but we'll have many more occasions through the year. And since we are going to be celebrating the whole year as Year of Compassion globally, His Holiness has been honored and invited by there are some 1,500 awards that His Holiness received, and many organizations have honored His Holiness. So if every organization organized one event based on the 4 principles of His Holiness, I think the message should be rather more on His Holiness messages to the world as a human being, as a religious person, as a Tibetan, and working for the preservation of the ancient Indian wisdom, which still has relevance in today's world when there's so much conflict going on. I think it's a time to focus on nonviolence and ahimsa that are rooted in Indian ancient wisdom, to seek solution for all the conflicts around the world, which are now unfortunately turning very violent these days, and humans are causing so much distress to other humans. We have to learn to live in peace with each other.
You're right in saying he's received many awards, but he's yet to receive the Bharat Ratna. Is that something that the Tibetan community over here expects from the Indian administration? Your predecessor certainly mentioned it when I spoke to him, that there should be Bharat Ratna for the Dalai Lama as well.
I have also worked in Delhi for many years, for 7.5 years, Director of Tibetan Parliamentary and Policy Research. Since that time, over the last 20-25 years, this effort has been going on from prominent Indians. Now it's for the Indian government to decide. From the Central Tibetan Administration side, we have not made any effort or representation to the Government of India or from the private office of His Holiness, because one award is not going to increase His Holiness respectability or decrease His Holiness respectability. But then Bharat Ratna is a huge honor for anybody who receives it. It's for the Indian government and the people of India to decide whether they should honor His Holiness or not. Of course, there are political considerations also. So it's entirely up to the government of the people of India. But we remain, despite with or without Bharat Ratna, we remain forever grateful to the government of India and people of India.
Sikyong, Penpa, Tsering, thank you so much for speaking with the network. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Geeta.